Past players, past legends, past legends.
Welcome back to Past Players, Past Legends, and today we have a Norwood past player, past legend. Also went on to play at a couple of VFL clubs. Justin Staritski, thanks for joining us, mate.
No problems at all, Peter.
G'day, Justin, a.k.a. Bart. We better get that over and done with straight away, Bart, because I don't think I've ever called you anything but that. Where did the Bart nickname start from originally, mate?
Right. Well, the Bart nickname came care of... I had a choice, actually. When I first started at Norwood with a surname like Staritski, they were looking for a shortened version pretty quickly. And I was offered Igor because of Igor Stravinsky.
Oh, yeah,
and I was offered Bart because of Bart Starr, who I think played for the Green Bay Packers. So that was my two choices. And so I gravitated pretty quickly to Bart.
Yes, because I think very rarely you ever called Justin. So, yes. So,
we will on this occasion for formal reasons, but it's Bart.
Right.
It's Bart from now on.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I've had some decent ones. The other one was at North Melbourne. I was called Hutch from Starsky and Hutch. So
that's true.
That was the other one. So,
that's a good one.
But all derivatives of the surname.
Okay, Justin. So, junior-wise, growing up, you went to Pembroke and that. So school career and starting at Norwood, mate.
Yep. Yeah. So basically, you're right. I before that, I sort of grew up in the country, I suppose. Dad was a teacher or a principal at the school, so had my time around. Grew up in Snowtown for a while and Port Lincoln, and was born in Leesondale, and then basically came back to Adelaide when I was about 12. And you're right, I started my schooling at Pembroke, and played all my school footy there, and was fortunate enough to have some pretty good coaches back then through Pembroke, and people like Robert Odie, who obviously is a bit of a legend of SA footy. So and then played what was back then the old Sandboy Cup. So had some representative at sort of Norwood in the under 15s and some of those special squads, and then moved into the under 17s probably in about 1985, I think.
Yeah, that's about right. And making your debut against West Adelaide in round 5 in 1988.
Yep. So that was a really special moment because I had a pretty long association from a family connection with Norwood. So both my grandparents were life members. My grandfather was a sort of a league delegate on the SNFL and a life member of the SNFL as well. And so and my dad Alex had played a handful of games when he was quite young before moving to the country. So there was a really strong sort of Norwood connection there, and it was a club that I'd followed all my life. And I was given an opportunity probably reasonably early as a 17-year-old to play in that game against Westies. And back then, you'd remember, Malcolm, that you pretty much sat on the bench unless something went terribly wrong and someone got dragged or someone got injured. And so I sat there for 3 quarters and then came on at Richmond Oval and, have really fond memories of it.
Fair to say that the red and blue runs through the veins, mate.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I didn't have any choice, and my kids have got no choice. It's pretty much dictated right from the word go.
Now, let's do that properly too. Your grandparents in Glad and Jack Mason, hugely respected, not only at Norwood, but as he said, in the SNFL. And also your dad, very, very highly respected in the school principal and the schooling environment in general as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Malcolm. Yeah, no, that's right. And Dad, and he'll be quick to let you know, he was a pretty successful coach at country level. He coached Leesondale to a couple of premierships. Snowtown certainly to some premierships as well. So really good country football. He'll tell you he should have won a male medal, but he missed out by 1 vote or something like that. But no, he was pretty handy.
Did you play any other sports as a kid?
Yes, tennis was a decision. So yes,
right up my alley as well.
No, I did. I played junior tennis. So as a kid, I think you gravitate and you go to Sapsazas and you go to the countries, and then if you're lucky enough, you get a state Sapsaza. So I played all those sort of things, and then I think by the time I was 14 or 15, I sort of had fallen out of love with the game a little bit. I'd sort of been practicing and competing for a fairly long time. And at the end of the day, I probably wasn't good enough anyhow. But I sort of moved and sort of gave it away at 15, and then moved into playing more and more footy.
Who were the top players around in that era, tennis-wise, for
then,
South Australia, that you might have come across?
It was in South Australia. There was a guy called Jason Spear who ended up playing a bit of footy for Woodville West Torrens.
Yeah, not a bad.
I was over in Melbourne when he went and played. But certainly in terms of nationally, and this is the sort of we play them in tournaments. It'd be people like Richard Fromberg and Jason Stoltenberg and Todd Woodbridge. They were all sort of players that sort of that were around at that age.
Some fair names there, bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, it was a good time, and I was really lucky because I got to go away a lot as a kid, and that it really forms a lot of good experiences at that young age to be able to go away and go into state with teams and play, and it puts you under a bit of pressure at times, and you have to grow up a bit. But no, it was a really good experience.
And then the 89, you had a good year, 29 games. You played a fair bit of footy that year with all the Foundation Cup games and finished fourth in the BNF. So a good year then, and obviously played a large part in North Melbourne picking you in the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was my best year, and I was still at uni, so you got to sleep in till 10, and so everything was footy. I was pretty fit. I got the opportunity at the start of that season. I think I'd finished the year before playing the last final. So I'd played a few games during the year, and then got reselected for our last final and equipped myself reasonably well. And so I think they sort of earmarked me. Macca might have hurt his knee late in the season before, and so they'd earmarked me to play in the centre, and so Barmy gave me that opportunity, which was great as an 18-year-old, and I managed to string a few good games together that year. I'd actually been drafted the year before, and I didn't. I just mentioned I was talking to some people just before. And they asked me about that, and I said, back in those days, I didn't even know. I rocked up to the club, and someone said, "You've been drafted by North Melbourne," and so that was what it was like those days. And effectively, there was no real intention to go straight away. That's for sure. And in fact, clubs took a bit of a risk back then drafting you when you had effectively 2 years of a contract left, because it wasn't a lay down, you wouldn't necessarily go straight away over to Melbourne. And that was never my intention. And in fact, it probably got, it only really became relevant, 2 years later.
So you play 13 games in your first season, 29 in your second, and then you're off to Melbourne. What was it like going to North Melbourne, mate?
Yeah, it was really good. I mean, I had one more year after that in the SANFL, but I'd pretty much played, I think, the first 7 games and played in a city country, which was an equivalent, because they even played state footy back then. The Victorians wouldn't play them, so they played this bit of a novelty city versus country game. And in that game, I tore my quadricep and ended up missing the whole rest of the year with it, pretty much. So it was a 15-week injury because I didn't manage it very well, and it's my first injury. And so it was a really it wasn't the best preparation to go over to Melbourne, and I was pretty scarred a little bit in terms of confidence in the leg. But yeah, got over there. Thought that North Melbourne were going to be really good. Had some really good young players, including people like Wayne Carey and Glenn Archer and all those sort of fellas. And, in the end, it ended up being like that. It was a great experience. In many respects, you go over there thinking it's going to be bigger and better, but, in a lot of ways, Norwood had better facilities. They were, really well coached. We had great coach Neil Baum at the time, and we had some unbelievable players that, could have walked into a lot of VFL sides or AFL sides in the end. Michael Aish, Keith Thomas had already been over there, but it was certainly a different time going on over there.
Were you a little bit disappointed that the Crows didn't come knocking?
No, I'd already been picked.
Well, actually, I was fortunate because I one of the things that happened when the Crows first came in was that they could annul 10 players who were already drafted, and I was over in Melbourne, and I was about to sign with North Melbourne, and I said to Bob Ansett, who was their chairman at the time, look, I just wanted to speak to my grandparents. Malcolm mentioned before I was pretty close to them, that I was going to sign. And by the time I got home, there was a message from Bob Hammond to give him a call. And I had no idea about the Crows at that stage, but he said, look, don't sign anything. We're gonna put you on our list. And so I sort of held back, and I weighed them both up. But it was in the end, I'd been on a couple of trips away with the North Melbourne boys, and like I said, I thought they were going to be good. You know, there was a bit of uncertainty still around the Crows, who was going to be coach, and a few other things. And in the end, I thought, well, look, I'll go over and play a few years over there, and if I can come back and I do well, then I might be able to get back to the Crows down the track as well. So in the end, that never really it came to fruition, but that was the thought process. But yeah, in some respects, some days I think, geez, I wish I'd played for the Crows in their first year. It would have been nice.
Yeah, I was wondering then. I did think of the bit where they were allowed to pick 10 players. I was trying to work out where you were at with that, and you've explained it. I was thinking you're 1 year out in that way, and then I've realised no, you would have been eligible in that way.
In the mix. Yeah.
And then. And then you've ended up at Collingwood, and it would be remiss if we didn't give your favourite Collingwood supporter and Luke Reynolds a mention. I did let him know that you were going to be on the show tonight. He was quite keen about that, Bart.
He's a great man, Luke. He's a ripper. He remembers my time at Collingwood. Must have been a die-hard Collingwood supporter.
He's a die-hard, yes.
No. Look, it was a great experience again. I talked about perhaps North, in their facilities, and then you go to a club like Collingwood where it's just another level, and the amount of support. You go to a game every week, you're sort of 60,000 plus. It was a great experience. Once again, I was disappointed that I played one game, and then effectively the week after I got shin splints and a stress fracture in my foot, and then missed the next sort of 10 weeks, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, you didn't have much luck with your injuries overall, Bart.
No, I was a bit of a crock. It wasn't great with soft tissue injuries, and so as soon as they started, that was sort of it. And then basically I got a few, broke a little transverse process in my back, and also did some like I said before, stress fractures. So I was pretty high maintenance, mate. I wasn't very resilient.
Playing over there on some of the iconic grounds, did you get to play at some of the local suburban grounds like Windy Hill and Victoria Park? And
Yeah, absolutely. So that was great. To be able to play at Windy Hill and Victoria Park was another one. Arden Street wasn't. They'd pretty much finished up playing there, so I didn't play any footy there. But the MCG and Waverley was still around then. Waverley was like a beautiful ground. Long drive out there, but it was a beautiful
Arctic
surface.
Park. I hear.
Arctic Park. Yeah,
I've been at a game where Norwood have won at Waverley against the Western Bulldogs. It was a great night.
Bulldogs, it would have been the old Footscray back then, I'd say.
Yep.
Those Foster's Cup games. I mean, Norwood were quite often getting through to the quarterfinals and those sort of things. It was a great thrill to be able to play in, like you say, all those older sort of grounds, and Western Oval. They were all still operating then slowly, one by one, through the wisdom of the AFL. And I suppose in reality I didn't get to see the outer and the facilities in the outer, which probably weren't great, particularly for women. So that those days are well and truly behind us now. But it was a great experience to be able to play on them. And I tell you, some of them were pretty hostile. It wasn't when you think about Moorabbin and running out there, and they used to have the races which were just covered by wire, and people would be just standing all over them, and giving you some pretty colourful advice, and maybe throwing a few fluids on you as well. So it was pretty interesting back then. That's for sure.
How would you compare, say, some of those grounds to some of the SNFL grounds, the iconic SNFL grounds? Yeah,
look, they probably had a little bit more history around them. I think they were certainly equipped for bigger crowds, bigger stands, but they were all pretty similar in terms of dimensions and so forth. Nothing's going to be bigger than Central's Oval out there. But yeah, they were great experiences. And then you'd sort of, if you played at Victoria Park, you could almost see the club rooms afterwards, and the club rooms had elevators in them, and they were big operations.
And then, Bart, after the Collingwood bit, you had a few games with the Uni Blues, mate.
I did, yes. So I actually, when I first started, or finished up, I went out to old Melburnians. I had a friend who was out there, and he dragged me out there. And I played maybe a year, but with Melbourne, it's one of those places, particularly if you've grown up in the country over here and you sort of you don't like sitting in a car for too long, that if you don't play or live on the same side as your training venue, it can be a bit of an arduous task getting to and from training. So I only lasted about a year and a half, and then I also got quite a bad kidney disease at the time, and so that sort of took me out of footy for a year. And then when I came back, I was living around the corner from Uni Blues, and just went out there and managed to have a few games, and had a few games with the current CEO of the AFL.
Yes, I was wondering that.
So,
yeah.
So Gil was terrific, and so I think we played in a state team. Although I got injured the week before, so I didn't end up playing it, but we both got picked in it for the amateurs, and he was a good footballer, Gil.
Lucky you're not a horse. Dogs finally broke down once, Bart.
I know. It was terrible. Yeah, no, I wasn't all that. You wouldn't put much money on me, that's for sure.
And then you came back to Norwood in 2000 for a bit.
Yep. So pretty much hadn't played footy for a few years, because I went via London and worked over there for 12 months, and then I came back and I gave. I just sort of thought I arrived back in Australia in January, I think, and excuse me, gave David Walker a call. I'd sort of kept myself reasonably fit on the way back, and said, "Look, mate, do you mind if I come out and have a run around and see if I can finish my career where I sort of started?" And he was good enough to let me do that, which was very generous of him. Got once again played reasonably well in the twos at the start, and then I rolled my ankle and missed 6 or 7 weeks, and then managed to sort of play the last 10 games in the league side. So that was a great thrill, and great to be back involved with the club.
And you've since then you've had a bit of coaching with Pembroke and Glenunga as well, on memory.
Not well, Glenunga only with my lads. So,
that's right. Yeah.
Go to the mighty under 6, 7, 8s, and 9s. I think probably up till they were 10 years old, and then I gave them a reprieve. But no, I love doing that. I love coaching the younger ones. And I had a good time at Pembroke as well. That was my old school. I had an opportunity to sort of help out a guy called Chris Mahaffey, who a lot of people would know, involved in amateur footy. And then Chris's health wasn't the best, and so I sort of took over from him as more of a help out, and then did that for probably a year and a half, and staved off relegation twice. So it wasn't the best, but look, in terms of we had a young group coming through, and I certainly enjoyed working with them. They were good lads.
You've got your photos up in the pavilion at Haslam, and I reckon you've knocked Raf Sturck off I reckon Raf Sturck's got you knocked off for the worst photo up there, mate. So it's yes.
Well, that's good. It's good. No, it was a great time. I really enjoyed my time at Pembroke, both in the old scholars sort of area and also as a kid growing up.
Did you have any other aspirations to follow on with your coaching, maybe at SANFL level? Or?
No, I think what it taught me, I always thought that I'd be a reasonable coach, but when you actually go through the process, there's a lot more to it, and it was probably one of those things that just identified that, coaching probably wasn't at that level, wasn't necessarily for me. So, I'd always, like I said, felt that I could contribute in a football program, but once I'd got the bug out of the system, I suppose, and now just happy watching others do it.
And give us a rundown. So you're now on the board at Norwood and of the football director. Give us a rundown on your roles there, and we'll expand a little bit on the film, etc. After that.
Yeah. So I've been on the board as the footy director for 6 years. I sort of took over from Michael Taylor when he finished up. And so, look, the role itself is pretty much all-encompassing in terms of footy, that you want to make sure that all the programs, whether they be 13s, 14s, and 15s have got the right people involved and teaching the right things and heading in the right direction. So I think I'm really happy with where we're at with those programs. It's also since I've been there, we've had the women's program introduced, and we've just appointed a new coach in that respect, a guy called Brad Snell, who's doing a terrific job. So it's all things football. So who's in the roles? What direction are we going to take in terms of recruiting style? Although when I say that, I'm certainly not. What I do is just oversee it. I don't get involved directly in making decisions around players, and that I shouldn't. And that's decisions for Jade. But certainly in terms of the type of players and our goal around perhaps getting younger players to the club, I think that's a good direction, and the athletic profiles of those players is an important decision as well.
And last year's premiership was a shot in the arm that Norwood needed.
Absolutely, yeah, Peter. Look, to be perfectly honest, I think it was maybe a year earlier than certainly I expected. I think we're in great hands. We've got a super coach in Jade Rawlings. He's brought in a really what I would call a final style of footy, so a really contested style of footy, and just the way that he's built relationships, not just with the players but throughout the club, and building a really strong culture. So in summary, I think it was maybe a year before, but we'll certainly take it. It was a great experience to go through, and we've got a good young list that I think will be better, not just for having another year under Twig, but also because I think we've recruited well again. We've picked up Jackson Callow and Jack Saunders and Matt Ling and amongst some others, including a couple more Tassie boys. Yeah. So I think we've recruited really well. But having said that, I think that the competition is a sensational competition, and I think Malcolm, you would attest to that. It's a terrific competition that gets better year on year, and I think Glenelg and North and Sturt and all those other clubs will be around the mark again in the south. And there's not an easy game in the SNFL.
Well, I was with Andrew Capel a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "Come on, let's do our final five," and I'll be honest, we were humming. Both of us had only West Adelaide as the outsiders in that way, and they did beat us last. And they were reasonable towards the end of last year. So,
Correct.
I think there is a fair bit of depth there. Now,
absolutely, and just on that, Malcolm, one of the things that we've got to be really, really cognizant of is that we played in, what was it, I think seven games, or maybe even 8 games that were decided by less than 7 points.
Yeah.
Of which we won 5. Now, if we'd lost another 2 of those, we don't get a double chance.
Yes.
And so, it's we've really got to be mindful that we certainly didn't dominate the competition. We played really good footy, and we won the games that we needed to win when we did it, and we're certainly a developing group. But the competition and just for that, Woodville, West Orange will be they'll be far better again next year, and they've been strong for a long time. So. Look, it's going to be a really good season again of SANFL footy.
And you've launched your movie career this week, Bart, too. The movie Fortis. Go through that experience, Bart, a little bit there with and then I'll give you my couple of highlights.
I'm looking forward to hearing your critique. But it was the brainchild of James Fantasia, who, Fan is just such a great person for the Norwood Footy Club. He lives and breathes it. He's supported the club all his life. And, him alongside Paul DiUlio, who I think is the best president going around, the amount of work that they do for the footy club is incredible. So I just thought I'd sort of add that before I get onto the documentary. But as I said, it was his brainchild. He came up with the idea of the week of the grand final, basically getting a young lad in called Miles McEwen, whose father James is on the board with me, and he's a very talented young man, and he basically just followed us around, and we have a regular catch up, myself, Paul, James, Twig, and last year the footy director, football manager, Rob Harding, and so we do that
and
every
Mark Robinson.
Every Monday we catch up, and so he was there the first time when we caught up on Monday, and then stayed throughout the whole week and got access on grand final day to do everything, and as a result, he's put this documentary together, which everyone was saying it was going to be good, but I was really surprised at just how good it was. I thought it was an excellent production. Except for my bits, that was the downside.
No, I'm unfortunate. I've just got to give you the news. You've missed out the Academy Award. I think Wolf Blass has got that sewn up well and truly.
Well, I was never going to beat him. I was never going to beat him. He was outstanding. He was outstanding.
Look, my highlights out of it was, I think it showed the genuine care, passion and empathy Twig's got. You can see why he's so well respected by the group and why there's such been a buy-in into the system where we weren't the best side and still managed, to win the premiership. And I think that really came through pretty strongly. And I was really glad that Twig made the point that Matty Panos, he mentioned about our culture with Richmond, and he also mentioned that Matty Panos is as good as any player he has been involved with in coaching and dealing with. And for those of us around the traps who are just stunned that Matthew Panos hasn't been on an AFL list since Bass basically told Port to in 2014, that he is the best player in the comp. And yeah, I enjoyed that bit. Look, I love just Wolf Bass's passion. Let's be honest. That was the highlight. It was funny, but it was genuine. It was quite like Paul was doing very well not to Matt Cordelio next to him to keep a straight face. They were my highlights out of it. I didn't think it was quite as inner circle as as I said, and it can't be. But for mine, they were my highlights.
Yeah, look, I think your reflection on Matty Panos and, for that matter, Jade, showing his vulnerabilities, and I think that's a fantastic thing, and you can see why his playing group gravitate to him, and so articulate as well, and so I think that's definitely a takeaway. And as you say, the great man Wolf Blass, incredible benefactor to the club, and what he's been able to do, which is can't be underestimated, the way what he's provided back to not only our supporters but our players, our club, our administration, everything, just in terms of the facility, and having someone of his profile being so enthused about being a Norwood supporter. He openly admits that this is his club, and he wants to support Norwood rather than potentially AFL and so forth. So that's such an amazing thing for him to do for us, and we'll be forever grateful. And your reflection on Matty Panos is absolutely 100% right. It's amazing that he's not on an AFL list, or didn't play or get more AFL opportunities, because he's a complete professional in everything he does. The way that he's brought himself back, you'd remember the game that his first game back. I jokingly said to him, can I have sort of 4 goals and 20 possessions? And he's probably, he certainly gave me the 4 goals, and he probably had more than 20 possessions. But that's a reflection on how well he prepares and just his talent. He's a special player and special leader at our club.
And it was no show. It wasn't a coincidence that we won 8 out of the 9 games Matt played last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of those games just take a little bit of poise at times, someone to finish and, kick a goal when we needed a goal kicked. And, that's really important. And everyone talks about the goal, but, Matt would be the first one to say, what about Jacob Kennelly's block? And I think that's the really important thing, that from a club that we've continued to focus on those things. And internally, that's been given just as much kudos as Matty's goal. Maybe not externally, but certainly internally, that those are the things that are what we call fortisacks. They're just so important.
Very much so. And look, Nunny being injured last year, and Jacob Kennelly stepped up. And look, those of us around knew that after Luke Valenti, we'd heard Luke Valenti is brilliant, and he's the best leader I've been involved with as a junior, heavy involvement with him. But then Jacob following up him at Ross Trevor, and there'd been really good feedback about him as a leader. And then he just stood up, and he was really the football leader. And he consistently did things like the blocks like that. It was really, there was one game afterwards, and I said, geez, that's a good block for Jarvo. And he said, geez, you do watch, Malcolm. And, stuff like that, which the average person might miss. And because we've all watched the King's goal, I think I'm up to about 8,576,332. We've all watched it so many times, you really notice that. But that's Jacob all over.
Yeah, no, it's a really good observation, and he's a guy that leads on the field, as well as anyone, and along with Matty Nunn, who's a great leader, and so we're where we were sort of ahhing probably 3 years ago. Where's our crop of good leaders going to come from? Well, it's amazing when you give them the opportunity how much they can flourish. And now, along with Jack Hurd and Harry Boyd and Declan Hamilton and all those sort of guys, we're really developing some strong leaders. And you need that, because they're the ones that win you those games when you need them to win them, and when they're close as well. So, no, I think it's a really good observation on your part.
So you made mention that obviously Jade Rowlands is or Twig is the man to steer these guys. Were you involved in getting him to the parade?
Well, yeah, I can put my hand on heart. Yes, I was.
Yes,
so,
yes.
we went. So 6 years ago, I was still on the roll. So, and probably what was it now? Jade's in his third year. So, we parted ways with Jared Cotton. What was it? 3 years ago, and so as a result of that, we went to market, and fortunate enough to have someone of Jade's quality come up. There was a lot of logistics that still needed to go through to get him over the line, but yeah, we were pretty keen to get him, and so pleased that we ended up being able to do that. So yeah, we're very lucky to have him.
Let's not miss what Jade's done himself with his family, still being back in Tasmania. It's been quite extraordinary, really. He actually lived with Stephen Marshall for a while, as well. So
yeah, massive. Yeah.
He's been
exactly right.
He's been
when
incredible.
He first came over, well, I think it's a good little story behind it. Because I think Paul got Stephen to give him a call while he was still premier, and welcome him into the club. And at the same time, he said, "Oh, where are you staying?" And Twig said, "Oh, well, I haven't got anywhere to stay. I'm still trying to work it all out." And the premier at the time sort of offered his place for a week, and so and funnily enough, I think it was just when all the lockdown started as well. So Twig was sort of in the war room as all the information's coming through and so forth. And it was very, very generous of Stephen to offer that. But you're right. I mean, it wasn't easy, and it hasn't been easy for Twig. But he's such a pro. He's developed really strong relationships. With all the people at Norwood, but fortunately this year he's brought Sally and the kids, Ed and Macy and Millie, all over. So he's far more settled now, and looks forward to sort of those kids are all off to school and all being pretty settled, which is great. And
he really hammers how he's really Norwood Football Club. He's here. I think if he actually got offered an AFL coaching job, he would knock it back. He's really bought into the Norwood Football Club. Yeah,
right from the word go. He's a self-confessed football nuffy, so a bit like you and me, Malcolm, and potentially probably you, Peter.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he knew of Norwood and its history, and can remember watching. Back in the old days, Malcolm, when they probably would have televised the grand finals in Tasmania as a kid, growing up and watching them. So he knows all about every club throughout Australia, whether it's in Western Australia or Northern Territory, just because he loves footy, he loves watching footy, he loves analysing footy, and that's why he's so good at what he does.
I think my observations of Twig is a bit like Bass. They live and breathe the Norwood Footy Club, and it's part of that new age coaching that it is all about the members, and they want to get them involved as much as possible, and make it about them as well.
Absolutely, it's about building relationships. Is like the number one key thing, and that's what he talked about when he first got interviewed, and that's the way he's basically lived and breathed since he's got over here. It's about building relationships and developing a culture that he can be proud of. And I think it's probably a reflection on what these guys get exposed to at AFL. You can't, Jade was in in the AFL system for a long, long time, and would have been exposed to so many different things and so many great people as well. And he's brought a lot of that stuff. What he can implement, because they're not full-time players, but he's certainly been able to implement a really strong program in a relatively short period of time, in 2 years.
Yeah, I think he also likes being out of the AFL, out of that AFL rat race to some thing, and you're not just a person. You're actually he communicates with everybody, and you're actually, and that's where I prefer SANFL. You're actually a member at Norwood, and there's connections there where you're not member number 1478763 like you are in AFL. But that's me. I admit that. Yeah,
look, I think that's a pretty fair observation as well. I think he's a Tassie boy originally, so living in Adelaide's it's not as busy obviously as Melbourne, but it's a little bit busier than Devonport, and he can get his parents over regularly, and so hopefully that's the plan. My dream is that he loves Adelaide, and Sally loves Adelaide, and they're very settled, and they, it's certainly a good start from winning the premiership last season. So yeah, and the other thing about that is that I think he's a senior coach as well. That's his passion. He wants his own side, and that's why he's been so good, because he's been able to mould the whole program, and he gets involved with the under-16 program. He gets involved in the 18s. He wants to be involved in critiquing everything about our footy program, which is invaluable, and that's what you want from your senior coach as well.
Definitely.
Well, it sounds like all the pieces of the puzzle are coming together, hopefully this year, for a successful back-to-back assault.
We certainly hope so, Peter. Fingers crossed we could do with another premiership down at the parade. So we're hopeful. We're sort of working hard, and we've got some good pieces in place. We think we're headed in the right direction.
And where you brought Jack Hurd up earlier, you knew that he was very well coached in Sapsaza for East Adelaide as well, Bart. So yes.
Who's that?
Jack Hurd. I had him for a couple. I actually originally had Jack Hurd when he was in grade 2 for Auskick, and that's where the whole Rewalt bit came from, with his blonde hair, and that's where he'd wear the St Kilda number 12 Guernsey. So that's where the Rewalt bit back actually comes from, right back from grade 2. So,
right.
Yeah.
You identified talent at an early age, Malcolm.
I still really rate his brother Finn. I'm not giving up on Finn yet.
No one is. I think and Finn's a little bit bigger bodied, so they just take a little bit of extra time. But he's still young, and he just needs a bit of continuity, a bit of luck with his injuries, and a bit of confidence. But he started to play some good footy towards the back end of last year as well. So he's going to be good, Finn.
All right, mate. Greatly appreciated.
Thanks,
Bart.
Mate, for that.
No worries at all.
I'm sure you'll still be waiting by the phone for the phone call from the academy directors as well, Bart.
No, definitely. Thank you, Malcolm. I appreciate your support on that, mate. But I won't be waiting on the phone.
One last bit with Bart. Let's remember too. So with Justin, when the AFL women's games first came, and we've got the game at Norwood Oval, and I've turned around, sitting with Justin in the stand, I've turned around to Justin and gone, now, if I'd said to you 5 years ago that the next time Norwood Oval will be packed as women's football, or local cricket is getting 45,000, 50,000 crowds at Adelaide Oval, which one would you have considered the more bizarre statement? And Bart's gone, it's a bloody good point, Malcolm. I'm not really sure on that one. Yeah. So, yes.
Yeah, no, it's certainly, and look, mate, you went to that game on Friday night. I thought it was the best game of women's footy I've seen at SANFLW level. It was outstanding. So, look, and I think we've got a really good coach in that area as well with Brad Snell. So I think they're headed in the right direction.
Good numbers at the game too.
It was a beautiful night. It was a great contest. A little bit of aggression from both the teams, which is nice to see as well. And I thought the quality of footy, you can just start to see. Their hands are getting better. Some of the overhead marking was terrific, and it was a great spectacle. Great spectacle.
I thought that was a significant improvement.
Yeah,
I really did.
Yeah, no, it was outstanding. So
hopefully that game's the benchmark for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. Yeah, I think if we can get more games like that, I just think more and more people will come. And it's a good night down at Norwood Oval and having a Coopers and watching any footy.
Well, sounds like a plan.
I think our bar trade was pretty reasonable on the night too. It was probably better than a lot of league games because of the weather. So
absolutely. Yep. No, so if we can get a couple of 30+ days on when the gather round happens, then that'll be perfect.
Yeah.
Well, mate, thank you very much.
The bar will be sitting over.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, thank you very much for letting us in a little bit on your career earlier on, but obviously your role as the Norwood Football Director and what's going on down at the parade at the moment. I will definitely be there this year supporting the mighty Redlegs, and I know my co-host here, Malcolm, he'll drag me along if I'm not.
Exactly.
That'd be good. I'll introduce you. It'd be nice to say hello. Obviously, I'll see you, Malcolm, and I'll say hello to you, Peter, when you come up.
Absolutely, mate.
Thanks for the chat.
You're welcome, mate.
Thanks, Bart.
Okay, take care.
Thanks, mate.
Liking this podcast? Please like, rate, and subscribe.